Hello, my friend. Good morning. Have a wonderful Sunday, everyone watching TV Borborema. On this first Sunday of 2026, we welcome Ary César Rodrigues to Borborema Interview. He is the founder and executive director of Estação CG Inova Hub. Ary, good morning, my brother. Welcome. First, I want to say that it's a joy to have you here with us on this first Sunday of the year to talk about our future. And what better way to talk about the future than in this first program of 2026? It's a pleasure to have you with us. The
pleasure is all mine, Paulo. Thank you very much to the entire production team and the entire structure of TV Borborema and Borborema Interview. For me, it's a pleasure to be here, as you said, to start the year well, already with proposals, already with ideas, and we have to bring that to Campina Grande. I'm here to collaborate with Estação CG Inova Hub. Let's talk a little about it, about some proposals for Campina Grande, and I'm available to everyone, including the public, so that we can develop it.
First, so that our viewers understand what Estação CG Inova Hub are.
Let's go. To talk a little about the station, we also have to talk a little about what innovation is. What is innovation? Innovation is when you transform products, processes, you improve, you create, but you transform it in a way that has an economic impact, okay? And a social impact. This has to be put into practice. Sometimes there's a bit of confusion between research and development and innovation. The two are complementary, synergistic, but innovation only emerges when that idea, that research, has been put into practice. Estação CG Inova Hub is a science and technology institute, a private nonprofit entity that we created about 2 years ago here in Campina Grande. And it fits into a moment when innovation is seen as the true engine. There's a lot of talk, but now things are being put into practice. Innovation as an engine of economic development, not only for the country but also for cities. And we're here to occupy a collaborative space within the thriving ecosystem of Campina Grande, but also to do our part and put forward our proposals. Estação CG has two purposes: the dissemination of knowledge and innovation in the promotion of innovation and innovative entrepreneurship, which is precisely this transformation. We want to transform ideas into projects, businesses, and jobs, and bring growth to the city. What is the profile of the company or business that can connect to Estação CG? The profile is as diverse as possible, as long as it involves innovation. So, from the famous startups, which are those nascent projects, ideas that are being developed and transformed into products, to large companies that are interested in technology-based innovation or not, but that have an interest in innovation to connect with us. The CG station, as the name itself suggests, is a station, a hub. We redistribute, receive people, orders, and pass this on to the ecosystem so that it can be transformed into everything I mentioned: innovation and new businesses.
And this ecosystem is prepared and works precisely to meet all kinds of demands. For example, when a certain company doesn't have the solution for the demand you have, there might be another company in that business hub that can already provide it, and if it's not yet in your service portfolio, you can also consider it and add it. That's how it works.
Exactly. I think you've perfectly grasped the point. Innovation. And the innovation ecosystem has a basic premise: it's collaborative. Innovation isn't done in isolation, in a particularized way. That's very important. There are even concepts, as we might call them, that are commonly used: open innovation. What is that? These are large companies that sometimes, in order to develop their needs, their solutions, face limited costs and even limited capacity for movement. However, when they address this within the ecosystem, small businesses, hubs like ours, or the entire sum of these, work precisely towards the solution. And this generates business, this generates savings, this generates development. And speaking of this connected world we live in today, I'm going to ask, but with the certainty of the answer: Are the companies you connect necessarily only located here in Campina Grande? No, no, no. Innovation is a globalized movement. We have connections, we've even transformed this into a collaborative network, as I said, right? This collaboration is important in local, regional, national, and international terms. So, we don't have border limits for innovation. Of course, you'll have some particularities. Certain themes are sometimes addressed for specific, sector-specific reasons. I can give you an example here. Let's go. Well, we have a project there called the Center for Efficiency in Urban Sustainability. What is that? It's a type of innovation environment that emerged from a project of the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation itself, which is focused on sustainable urban solutions. Where does this have the greatest value? Potentially in cities with urban problems, or cities that sometimes experience what are called climate catastrophes, let's say Rio Grande do Sul. Recently, with all that flooding, the cities practically collapse. Where does innovation come in? By seeking solutions, whether preventive or remedial, so that this disruption is overcome or avoided, right, or overcome with the least possible pain. So this is a type of innovation for cities. So this can be sectorized. All cities need the same solutions. No, but a solution developed, for example, in Campina Grande, can be disseminated to countless other cities outside of Brazil, including solutions for mobility, connectivity, health, education. All of this falls under the umbrella of urban solutions I mentioned. But this is just one aspect of what we call innovation. There are many others.
When we talk about mobility, for example, some people think it's just about the flow of vehicles going to and fro. I'd like you to give us a concept, to define technically what we can consider mobility. How, for example, has technology and innovation been used today to guarantee mobility? And this is a trendy urban and human term for people's lives?
Perfect, perfect. Ah, cities are for whom? They are for people. So it's natural that a city that developed under a certain model, but without preventing certain problems, will see those problems exacerbated in the future, and mobility is a critical element of this process. There's an increasing exodus, it's always existed, but it's becoming more concentrated now, from the countryside to the city. Cities are growing, swelling. So much so that if you look at UN figures, the trend is that by 2050 you'll have a much higher percentage than today, which is around 50 to 52%, reaching 66% of the population concentrated in urban centers. But I'm saying that today there are 8 billion people in the world and we're going to reach 9.7 billion. So the percentage grows, but the volume grows. Are cities prepared for this? Mobility, then, you have to go back to the city centered on the citizen's perspective. What do they need? Some movements, for example, in Europe, are heavily involved in a concept called the 15-minute city, where everything has to be within a 15-minute radius of mobility. You don't just have the city center. You diversify it into smaller centers, but that's already an action related to mobility. Exactly. Why? Because you'll reduce the flow of vehicles. Another solution, for example, is public transportation. Public transportation modes are mobility solutions. So, we're getting there, Representative. The light rail project is quite evident now. Do
you think it will solve this mobility issue here in Campinas?
No, it won't solve it completely, but if it's part of a plan, yes, right? It's a much larger plan. It will contribute considerably, because I can transport many more people in a light rail vehicle, in the light rail, than in a car. How many cars do I need to transport that number of people? And what about all the impact generated by cars versus a simple light rail? Simple in terms, but it's unique, right? Let's call it that. So I have to excuse me, but I have to use this example. People, Brazilians here, when they travel to Europe, for example, I know that's not within everyone's reach, but just to use it as an example, how do they get around? They don't rent cars within the cities.
And they want to travel by bus, they want to travel by subway. So that's what we need. We have the ability to deconstruct this idea in citizens, individually, that, for example, if I'm here in Campina Grande, working here, I have to come by private transport. I can and should use, if possible, these other modes of transport, right?
Let's go. There's an extremely interesting factor. Campina Grande, our city center, it's a historic center, it's vibrant, it has a very large circulation of people, but if you analyze it, if a plan were made, a long time ago, some viewers will remember, this one near here, including the TV station here in the center, several of these streets were pedestrianized. Why? Who did those streets belong to? To the authorities or to the people? People circulated there, people were at the door of the shops, people bought things. Today it's back to being for cars. I don't have those pedestrianized streets anymore. All of Cara Vieira is small, but before I had Venance Neva, I had Marcel Pinheiro. There were others that I don't remember here. But what happens? If you do this kind of movement in a planned way, you give the city center back to the citizen. Then there's that question, a person who enters with a car looking for parking on these central streets, what do? They drive around until they find their spot. How many cars are circulating at the same time, generating disruption, pollution, consumption,
stress,
and so on? Or park near the city center, walk for a healthy time. Walk for 10 minutes to get where you need to go. This is cultural, this is planning, these are solutions. You don't need to park right in front of the store, but that involves a whole cultural concept, a matter of acculturation that we need to perhaps revive and encourage. Don't just walk around the reservoir in Campina Grande, walk from your car to the store, to the city center. It's healthy. From the point of view, we are talking, folks, with Ary César Rodrigues, Executive Director of Inova Hub CG. Oh, Ary, from the point of view, you mentioned the reservoir, and it's impressive how, due to human action itself, regarding the incorrect disposal of waste, such as sofas, refrigerators, among others, we have a silted-up reservoir in the heart of Campina. Well, many days on end it smells bad, stinking, and ceasing to be the postcard image it is, becoming a kind of social problem as well. What could be done in your opinion? You, who work with innovation and know other realities very well, do we have any good examples, Brazil or the world, of something similar to the old reservoir that we could perhaps bring here? No, certainly we do, but the solutions have to be, in a way, customized to the environment, right? Let's go. You raised an interesting point, Paulo, which ties in with another proposal we have within the station, which I've even been discussing with the City Hall, and which we bring from the outside in. I have to have a vision of what the old reservoir is for Campina Grande. You said it's a postcard image, and I'll go further. It's the Campina Grande Boulevard. That should be for walking, not for cars to pass through. But okay, then studies, analyses, and everything else would be necessary. But we also have an additional proposal to bring to Campina Grande several cities that are working in this direction, which is the development of districts. What do we call a district from the point of view of innovation? A district is a rearrangement of an urban area where you place a specific focus. For example, I can create a creative and innovative district somewhere in Campina Grande. We, obviously, still need to do a study, an analysis, or involve stakeholders from the City Hall itself. Around the old reservoir, we have areas like, for example, I think mentioning the names will help the audience identify them better, but the Catole neighborhood, for example, has unoccupied areas, areas that need to be redeveloped. Why not transform this into a creative and innovative district to attract companies, generate jobs, and even recover historical value? Because there we have the whole issue of the golden age of cotton with the railway line, which even includes the light rail, museums, buildings, other things, and several cities, for example, Recife. I'll go to a nearby place, then I'll go further away. Recife has a digital port. It revitalized the entire area of old Recife, okay? It recovered it. Today, the digital port alone, which is a private institution, manages and has more than 400 companies incubated there. And I'm not just talking about startups. Apple, Oracle, large global companies are there with jobs, with investments. Oh, they are already studying a second innovation district, which is Santo Antonio, to create a second one. Then we start going further away. Florianopolis. Florianopolis is an island. It has a very extensive preservation area and it doesn't absorb heavy industries. Innovation is a very low-impact industry. It's offices, it's companies, it's connectivity, and you generate a lot of value from that. So, Florianopolis today is the Brazilian Silicon Valley, with more than 5,000 startups located on the island of Florianopolis, generating a tax revenue that almost doubles every 2 years for the city hall. You have Jundiaí, you have Curitiba, you have Porto Alegre, and outside the country, you have Barcelona. So, when you think about the city, and here I bring up the reservoir again, it's a boulevard, you have nearby areas that could be redeveloped as a suggestion. Obviously, it's up to the city hall, if it deems it viable, to identify that area or another area in Campina Grande, but the important thing is that it gets done, because development needs to arrive and it doesn't wait. Innovation is very fast-paced. If you take too long to take certain measures, you miss the boat. Campina Grande has the necessary characteristics to be this connectivity hub. Ary, you can answer that question right after the break. We are talking with Ary César Rodrigues, the Executive Director of Inova Hub CG, in this first edition of Borborema Interview of 2026. We'll be right back. We're back with Borborema Interview this Sunday, January 1st, 2026, receiving Ary César Rodrigues, Executive Director of Inova Hub CG. Before going on break, I ask you, Ary, if Campina Grande has the necessary characteristics to be a city like, of course, keeping in mind the differences in scale for our current reality, but like Florianopolis for its region, Curitiba and other cities from the point of view of innovation. Does Campina Grande have the conditions to be this connectivity hub? Absolutely. And I'll tell you more, I'm going to make a comment here. Well, a few years ago I worked in Congress, on the Senate's Science and Technology Committee, and there I had access to a lot of data, a lot of information, and a whole relationship with the federal executive branch, where I was able to do a general analysis of the country's cities. Campina Grande was in a prominent position along with others like Florianopolis. Why? Because Campina Grande has all the assets for it. Maybe what's missing? Proposals, planning, and execution, right? I think that's important. Campina Grande has an academic park. When we talk about innovation, the main input is people. Technical qualification. Campina Grande has an enviable academic park, which few cities in the country have. So, we have a very high generation of qualified intellectual capital. Campina Grande has logistics. We are close to everything. We are close to capitals, airports, ports, highways, railways. So, we have the capacity to absorb a much larger industrial park than we have today and have had in the past. Not by chance. The only state in the country where the Federation of Industries isn't located in the capital is Paraíba. It's in Campina Grande, precisely because of our vocation. We have an industrial and entrepreneurial vocation. And we also have a very opportune moment for this to transform into progress for Campina Grande. If we consider this, it's so pressing, the world sees it so clearly that recently 2 Nobel Prizes in Economics, 2018 and 2025, address innovation as an engine of growth. And once again, I say, it's not only for countries and nations, it's for cities too. So we have the conditions, we have the people, we have the will, the capacity. Campina Grande has a fantastic capacity for achievement. What's perhaps lacking is proposals, planning, and execution. We need to retain talent. Today, our talent is highly skilled here in Campina Grande, and it's exported in many ways. People, right? Companies absorb the talent that Campina Grande has invested in developing. When that person becomes economically active, what do? They need to leave Campina Grande. Why? Because I need a skilled job. I need a job that pays well. Innovation pays off in terms of salaries, in terms of return, in multiple, very high values. From a political point of view, and I'd like to point out that this isn't a question exclusive to the reality of Campina Grande, but rather a national scenario. We see the science, technology, and innovation departments, the secretariats in municipalities and states, often being treated as political bargaining chips, simply as a space where the manager at that moment will honor a campaign promise to a political ally and cede that space to someone who doesn't have the necessary technical capacity to lead a secretariat like that, to lead a debate like that. This is very frequent in our country. We need, from a political point of view, a more technical perspective on the occupation of certain spaces. Yes, absolutely. Let's go. Now we enter the field of political science. I'm part of the political science program at the Federal University of Campina Grande, and my research focuses precisely on public innovation policy, and we directly address this. This is a matter of agenda setting. Every politician, right? And here we're talking about the executive branch, has their own agenda. What are their priorities? It's up to the manager to define that innovation is a priority for the municipality. When you only use innovation as a campaign slogan or something similar, you're neglecting, in my view, with all due respect, a factor in the city's development. If you don't empower, for example, the Secretariat of Science and Technology, the Secretariat for the development of the necessary mechanisms, the message you're sending is that innovation is not actually on your agenda. So that's my concern. Campina Grande perhaps needs to empower its secretariats. I have my opinions. Yes, it needs to. And then it needs to receive input from outside the city hall, for example, like ours from Estação, right? Estação CG Inova Hub, with projects, and not only us. We have several actors within the ecosystem who have numerous contributions to make to the manager, because some actions are intrinsic, necessary, and depend exclusively on the executive's pen. An initiative like the Creative Innovation District I mentioned, it has to be started by whom? By right. No matter how much I talk, no matter how much I bring here, no matter how many studies we publicize, if I don't have the public power involved, we won't be able to move forward. Where it happened, the power, the private sector, academia, and the public power were hand in hand, focused on the same objective. Want to see an example that worked in this aspect, where the public administration, realized the need for this increasingly technical and refined look, one that understands the pains and feelings of that category? The very Secretariat of Economic Development here in Campina Grande. We even recently had an interview here at Borborema with Secretary Taylor Fama, who is a businesswoman and currently occupies this position in the Secretariat of Economic Development and is managing to do a very good job, very well evaluated, including by the population of Campina Grande itself. I believe that perhaps a situation like this, also in other departments, will do a lot of good, not only, I repeat, to the municipal government here in Campina Grande, but to all governments. I believe that, despite the need for political alliances and everything that happens, we are in an election year. Despite everything that happens, right, Ary, we need to have this vision. Some things, in fact, even when it comes to politics, need to be non-negotiable, right? I know Secretary Taylor. I have all the praise to give her for her efforts, for her entrepreneurial vision, and we have even presented her with some projects, including those of the creative district. And it's not just a proposal. We have clear examples, some of which I've mentioned, and I can talk about them when we discuss the issue of the agenda, mayors who are prioritizing this agenda. And nearby, we have João Campos in Recife transforming the city, and JC in Maceió as well, with Maceió Digital, with a whole plan, with actions, courses. These things exist, but if you don't plan, if you don't create the project, you can't attract a company to come here. It needs to understand, a large company. And we have relationships with some companies. There's a Spanish company that we've been trying to bring here since last year, but I can't do it alone. Remember the story of collaboration, planning, the agenda. These are important words in this movement. So, from our side, we are completely at the disposal of the City Hall, of the ecosystem, to bring all the knowledge, all the relationships we have, including outside of Campina Grande, regionally and nationally, and outside of Brazil as well, to bring opportunities here. But I need Campina Grande to want it, and wanting means including it on the agenda. It means empowering the headquarters, right, the secretary, and the Secretary of Science and Technology with Fabiana. I forgot, Councilwoman Fabiana. Gomes, exactly, sorry. And they need to be empowered because, as public agents, they won't be able to do it if they don't have the proper mechanism for it. However, the City Hall also needs to open itself up in a collaborative way to these actors in the surrounding area, because they all have something to contribute. That's
it. We spoke this Sunday with Ary César Rodrigues, Executive Director of Inova Hub CG. Oh, my brother, thank you very much. The guillotine of time is cruel, but it was very good to have you with us on this first Sunday of 2026. Success, long life, and much innovation.
Thank you very much. We are at your disposal. May 2026 bring many good things, many news. It's a political year, a complex year, but sometimes within the complexity we manage to find our way. Once again, Campina needs to grow. It needs jobs, it needs skilled jobs, it needs industry, it needs businesses. That's how we move forward. That's
it. Thank you. We spoke with Ary César Rodrigues, Executive Director of Inova Hub CG. Thank you for your kind attention. Have an excellent rest of your Sunday, a blessed week, and a year of blessings and peace. Next Sunday we'll meet again, God willing, at 10:30 a.m. Have a good week, everyone.